we'll have this discussion.
Discussion? What discussion?
This is a discussion.
Combustion.
Coming to you from Denver, Colorado, this is Discussion Combustion Podcast with your hosts, Kevin Batstone and Arthur Raw.
Gotta just do it. You gotta step up and make it happen.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta jump, and go all into whatever it is that you're going all in on.
Yeah.
I love that line by Steve Harvey. He says, you don't know if your parachute's gonna open until you jump. Sometimes you gotta take a risk, you gotta roll the dice.
No, it's so true.
So there'll come a time, I think, where that jump's gonna need to be made.
Yeah.
You gotta go all in.
It'll be terrifying, it'll be hard work, but it'll be hopefully worth it.
Right. I mean, all the things that make you a little anxious, make you a little nervous before you do it, and then those are the things that once you complete that, once you finish that, it's so satisfying.
Oh yeah.
And it's hard to match that feeling of overcoming challenge, because that's truly what it is you're just challenging yourself and overcoming it, and within that you discover who you are. You kind of learn as you go. Yeah,
you don't really learn as much about yourself in the good times as you do when things are tough, when they're challenging, when they go completely wrong.
So true. You find the success and the failure sometimes, and I feel like failure is a part of success. You got to take the rainy days with the sunny days.
Absolutely.
No pun intended. It all comes back to the weather.
That is my life. Everyone, they love the weather jokes.
They love the weather
jokes.
Goodness.
We got Denver's favorite meteorologist in here today.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's what I've been hearing. Everyone's super excited, and even there's this old gentleman that works down the hall of Ryan.
He's great.
Yeah, he's like, oh, she says hi to me every morning through the TV, and so it's cool though, because when you have a job like that where you are making an impact, you carry that energy, and it's almost a responsibility, right? Because people are depending on your energy they expect that, and so you have to kind of maintain. How do you kind of cope with that outside pressure, do you think?
I don't really feel much outside pressure for that.
That's good.
Because when I'm on TV, and granted I have bad days and I put on smiles for bad days and whatnot, but that's just kind of genuinely who I am, for better or for worse. And I love it. That's what gives me energy, is connecting with people and talking to people. And I got 2 nice emails this morning, and they just absolutely made my day, and they make it feel like, oh, I am doing something that's connecting with people. And that's important too, because people rely on the weather, whether it's traveling or it's farmers or whatever that is, or you just want to go skiing for the weekend. I get to tell you about that, and I get to tell you the why and the how and everything. So I don't feel the pressure anymore now. Honestly, it's really fun. Sometimes I'm like, I can't believe I just get to tell people the weather for my job.
It's outstanding.
Yeah.
That's
so lucky.
When you can wake up and do something you love and have so much passion and energy.
Even
great.
At 3 a.m.
Even at 3 a.m.
3 a.m.
That's committed. So the alarm clock goes off at 3?
A little bit before 3.
Wow.
And I do some forecasting the night before, and then I immediately start forecasting, and we hop on a call around 3:30, and then I get ready and we're on air at 4:30.
Wow.
That's a tight schedule.
Yeah. It's a lot. I mean, it's a lifestyle, and it's hard to find people who understand and respect it. But most of my friends are pretty good. I'm a happy hour girl. I don't pay full price for drinks for dinner, because I'm there at 4:30. Then I'm out by 7 every day.
That's the best though, because you beat the crowd and
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I barely go out to dinner at a normal time, and I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it's totally a commitment that you have to make.
Yes.
How many years have you been getting up that early now at this point?
Oh gosh, so I've been in the business for 10 years. I'd say more than half of that has been on mornings. I'm not an evening personality. That's not me. I'm not hop on, give one, quick weather and then leave at 10 p.m. Also I can't stay up past 10 p.m. That's just not me in general.
Yeah.
But I like the mornings. I like that you get to start people's day and start it on a good note. I like the energy. I like the camaraderie. So it's been more than half my career. And when I was interviewing at Fox, I didn't know what the job was. And they were like, are you a morning or an evening person? And I went off on mornings for 10 minutes, and I go, oh, this might have been an evening job. Who knows? But that's just who I am.
Yeah,
nice.
You owned it. You went in there and said, hey, this is what I do. This is what I'm good at. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, the mornings for me, I used to be more of a morning person, I feel like, when I was a little bit younger.
Really?
Now that I'm in the liquor biz and these stores don't open until 9:30,
So
10.
younger as in less than a year ago?
No, I still wasn't much of a morning person even then, but
What do you consider a morning person though? When do you get up? Or when would you get up?
It really depends on what I have to do that day.
Yeah.
If I'm sleeping in to me, I can stay until 8 o'clock.
Okay.
And I'm ready to go. But if I have something to do that day, or if we got a podcast to do early, I can be up early. I just don't know if I enjoy it as much. If I'm getting up to do something I enjoy, I'll get up at 3. No, if I'm going hunting, I'm going to NASCAR, I'm doing whatever the hell I want to do, I'll get up early. But it's when I'm forced to do something I don't want to do early, that's when I snooze.
I mean, I snooze every morning too. So,
Do you? How many times?
Usually 4.
And what's the interval? 5 to 10 minutes?
I think I do 4 to 6. Yeah.
That's tough because that's right when you're starting to hit that comfy sleep again, and then it goes off.
It's
again.
brutal. I don't know why I do it to myself.
It is tough. Like I've been losing the morning battle for a while now because I do listen to motivational videos a couple times a week.
Yeah.
And there's this one on, it's just like, what's the secret to getting out of bed in the morning? Well, you set your alarm and you get out of bed. Like,
you just do it.
He's like being all serious and stuff, and it's just like, man, I'm like, I know that's an area where I've been struggling, but that extra, 20 minutes, what does that create? An extra 20 minutes? Like, how productive can you be, like, in that time? Like, if you're, like, really trying to squeeze all the juice out of the day, then, like, for sure, wake up. But if you're not in that super grind mode, I mean, you can grind without super grinding, right?
You can put in, like, the minimum effort.
Yeah.
Check the boxes, so to speak.
Yeah.
I like to do a little higher than minimum.
Do you?
Yeah, I mean,
Just, like, slightly above?
It depends what it's about,
Yeah.
And I guess it depends on the day, too,
Well,
I think it's okay to have days where you're not as productive. And, like, I think I used to always feel like you have to be, doing 110 every single day. And now I find a lot of passion and happiness and, like, re-energizing and, like, okay, you can have a day where you're not doing everything all day long.
You need those off days.
You do.
Mm-hmm.
It's important for balance.
Absolutely.
Work-life balance, mental health, all that ties into it. Because I feel like when I'm flat out and we have a lot going on here, we're producing shows and doing casts, got to be at work early, get overwhelmed. I don't eat well. I tend to drink too much and not eat. So it's like all that comes into effect with how you're going to balance your life with all the stress and the places you got to be.
So one of our friends, we'll call him Mark, because that's his name.
Okay.
We'll call him Mark.
He's an early riser.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so he gets up around 4-ish, but he sometimes
Expects us to be up with him.
Yeah, he thinks everybody else should be
Does
up
he
at
text
that.
you early?
Oh, yeah. Almost 3 times a week I'll get a text from him, whether it's a Reddit post or maybe it's a weather report. I don't know. But he makes it known like, hey, I'm up, or you?
Oh, that's so
He's
good.
one of those guys.
Do you feel that way at all?
I try and be really respectful of people's time in the morning. So I have people who I will have conversations with them, especially if I'm like dating them or whatever. I'm like, are you okay if I text you at 4 a.m.? Do you wake up? But I'll wake up to a ton of texts at 3, and then this has led to me becoming a terrible texter. Is I'll be like, cool, I'll respond to them at an appropriate time, and then 12 hours go by, and I just totally forgot to respond. So there are a few that I can text early, but I try and be respectful and wait till like 6 or 7. Because I know, like, my schedule is crazy. I don't expect most people to be on it.
Yeah.
I totally understand and respect that. I get so many texts that I just can't respond to. I'm busy.
Yeah.
And then you forget about it. I'm like, oh, I got to, and then you look and you missed it and they get mad.
Do you get like times a day? Like sometimes I'll be like, respond to your text messages. Like go through 20, respond to them all. Hey, I'm so sorry. I forgot to get back to you.
Yeah, you almost have to set like a calendar reminder.
You do?
I feel like.
Yeah.
To balance everything. When you're that busy, if I didn't have my Google Calendar reminders, I thought we were recording at 6 tonight. I was like, oh, it's 5.
I was like, no, Kevin, we're on it.
You guys were very sweet to do it an hour earlier so that I can go to bed on time.
We are more than happy to accommodate, honestly. We were just talking about
being scheduled and being punctual.
Yeah.
Being on and I lost it. This happens at least once or twice a week to me.
This happens to me in my weather reports.
Yeah.
I literally sometimes be like, I have no idea where I was going with that sentence. I'm really sorry.
That's the fun
you
part.
Start the sentence
is when you wing it.
And then halfway through you're like, I'm going to keep on talking through this and figure it out.
Especially for me because we go on at 4:30 till 10 and then we get like a 45-minute break. And by 8 or 9, sometimes like I'll start thinking about other things as I'm doing weather, which is not good. Like then I'll bring myself back in, but it's tough like to stay that focused all the time.
So I remembered what it was in that little break.
Okay.
So thank you.
It comes back to you. Come back.
I appreciate that. Like with the texting and like people trying to constantly reach out and being busy throughout the day. Like if you really want to talk to me, I'm old school. Like pick up the phone and call me. And I will definitely
genuine.
give you all the energy that you need and talk to you about whatever you want to talk about. And besides, it's the time that you spend texting back and forth, you can accomplish that in like 3 minutes on the phone opposed to like a 20-minute text thread.
I also like to think too that if you're not a great texter, that means you're living more in the moment. Because if I'm out with friends, with family, most of the time my phone is down and away. And like hiking too, it's on airplane mode. Like even if I have service, like that's one of my favorite parts about hiking is just getting out there, shutting down.
Yeah.
And so my friends understand that now. And if someone's texting me all day or if they're texting while they're out with their friends, I'm like, just go be with that person.
Absolutely.
Like enjoy that. And sometimes you have to get some stuff done, but
yeah, work calls sometimes. But I was just talking about this with Spirit Forest last week, our guest from last week.
Yeah.
The importance of like when I camp, or if it's the weekend, I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Ask these guys. I'm hard to reach. Like if it's my downtime, I need it. I have to recharge. You know, I don't like being tied to my phone. I feel like it's unhealthy. I've seen the habits of, let's see how the episode's performing. Let's see how this is performing.
It's addicting. It's super addicting.
It is addicting, and it's unhealthy, I feel like.
Yeah.
So it's important to shut down, put your phone on airplane mode, go see the outdoors.
Yeah.
So yeah, talking about outdoors, Approachable Outdoors.
Approachable.
How long? So Kylie, this is your thing. You started Approachable Outdoors
about 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah,
Okay.
which is wild to think about, but it took. I knew I wanted to start some sort of, because I was hiking a lot and people were reaching out and asking me for hikes, and I would send them the links to, all trails or whatever. And I was telling my brother about it, who's in digital marketing and builds websites and stuff. And he's like, why don't we just build you a website and you can talk about hiking and, do these put the hikes on there. He's like, people are already asking about it. So I was like, all right, like if you're willing to help. And so he built the website. It took probably 6 months to come up with just the name of it. Like coming up with, like, as you guys I'm sure know, that's very difficult thing to do. And I remember when I settled on Approachable, it just made so much sense for me, because when I moved to Colorado, I went to school in Boulder. So this was now like however many years ago, 14 years ago. And I was like, I like to hike. I like to ski or snowboard. And there was that immediate, cool, like how much do you shred? Like how many 14ers do you do? And I was like, I think we have a misunderstanding. Like I like the easier hikes. And I found that in Colorado, there's this really weird intimidation process that goes along with calling yourself outdoorsy. Because a lot of people, I'd call myself outdoorsy too, and I'd get like the once over and the city
They're like,
girl.
are you sure you're outdoorsy sort of thing? Like
100%. And the truth is, I'm probably not by their standards.
Okay.
But I found that was ridiculous. And I want people to feel really empowered to go outside and go hiking and to try something new. And the impacts that I felt when it came to my mental health and the benefits of it.
It's so important.
It's so, even just going for a walk outside, breathing fresh air, it's so good for you. And I have anxiety, and like shutting down my phone and just being out in nature, it's helped me immensely. So I was like, I can't be the only person that this helps. And I can't be the only person who was intimidated. And so I started it, and amazingly, people check it out. And it's really been incredibly fun. And the connections that I've made with people and some of the messages that I get have just made me feel like, okay, because I don't make any money off of it. It's a ton of work. But
it's something that you enjoy, and it means something to you.
It fills up my bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's worth more than money.
100%.
In my opinion. And getting outside, like I would consider myself a modern day hippie. Okay. But just because I'm a modern day hippie doesn't mean that these things don't work for everybody. But it's so true, because, we're in this office right now, right? Like we're surrounded by all this artificial material, like plastics and stuff, and everything gives off an energy, right? Like, so there's always attractor fields like flowing through, like a conversation can create energy, like a smell, like an appearance. So it's like, you think about that, and when you remove yourself from all the man-made stuff, and you go outside and you go to an approachable outdoor area, then you are surrounding yourself with life essence, right? Because the trees give oxygen, the birds are out there, there's insects, there's like a whole ecosystem happening, and you're in that. And so it does have this energy that can be healing, and I think is extremely important. Like going on a walk, it truly does kind of cleanse the soul a little bit, I'd say.
I never thought about it like that, with the energy that it gives back. Because I think you're absolutely right. And you can feel that when you go out there and you're surrounded by these living things, and the quiet that goes along with it, but also the energy. I'm going to be thinking about that next time I'm on a hike. I'm like, I feel the energy.
Yeah, just take that deep breath in, and you're when you can be outdoors and you don't hear cars, that's the best. Because then it's like true peace and quiet and one with nature. Like all you could hear is the
wind
breeze
of the trees
going through the trees.
Sound.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
the best sound. It's more rejuvenating than walking on a treadmill. Sure, that's a great option if you're traveling, you're in a hotel or whatever. But walking outdoors, I feel more. I'm getting more out of that hike.
Yes.
You're in the elements. You're stepping over boulders and obstacles rather than just walking on a treadmill. So
and you
for
feel
me,
accomplished.
Yeah, you do.
There's so much. I mean, how lucky are we that during the pandemic got to live here, where we had options to go outside safely and and not be too close to people.
Yeah.
I that was really when I was able to get so many hikes done and up on the blog, because I was like, nothing else to do. I'm going to go for a hike, and went hiking 2-3 days a week all through the pandemic.
That's awesome.
It was really fun.
That was a good way to spend the time, because locked indoors, we always had the outdoors.
Yep.
Outdoors aren't going anywhere.
Nope.
So, and there's so much of it. My first hike I did was with, I think, you in Colorado. We did James Peak. I mean, I did a few others, but that was my first serious
Yeah,
one.
I haven't done that one.
It's pretty fun. I mean, have you
Yeah.
been to St. Mary's Glacier? It's like 20 miles. what'd you
Idaho
say?
Springs.
20 miles
Oh,
north.
Idaho Springs. Okay.
Yeah,
around
it's up in that area.
Nice.
But anyhow, St. Mary's Glacier, fantastic. Highly recommend it. But
Beautiful.
then James Peak is beyond that.
Okay.
It's like a 13.4, 13.5, but
Got it.
pretty good hike, I felt like.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, you got to test yourself, and it feels good. Like you said, it's kind of like checking a box, right? Like you go out there, even if you do a quarter mile, like it's better than sitting on the couch.
Yeah.
Right. So, Approachable Outdoors, you created it because you wanted to get acquainted kind of with the Colorado hiking scene and but not always all the extreme stuff like the 14ers and
Yes.
things of that nature.
I just want people to feel welcome and encouraged to go into the outdoors because I didn't feel that when I moved here.
So, yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a good place. Like, you're filling in a void there, right? So I think it's an important thing. We definitely like the outdoors and support all that. Have you been to Roxborough State Park?
Oh, I love Roxborough.
Okay.
Yes, one of my favorites. They have Fountain Valley Trail is one of my all-time favorites to give to people when they bring people come visit.
It's super easy.
Super
right?
easy.
Especially when you do the North Trail is a little bit easier, the one that goes around like that old cabin and stuff.
Yeah.
But so that ecosystem on the west side of that loop is so cool because it's like completely different than any other part of the trail. And you're like in between like these two big boulder areas, and there's like this little ecosystem that's in between. And I think about that pretty frequently because like I was watching this like Nature Channel documentary one time, and they were talking about how like the field is full of life and death. Sort
yes,
of thing.
that was my only rattlesnake encounter I've had in Colorado. Was at Roxborough.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right in that little ecosystem right there.
What happened during that?
I didn't see it, and it sounded like rustling like grass, and then someone yelled rattlesnake, and I just instinctively jumped back, and I guess that it was like up and ready to.
It was ready to strike.
Really?
Yeah.
How
what
far from you?
They said it was about 2 feet.
Oh, that's striking distance.
Yeah, because I was right on the edge, and so it was right in the brush. So yeah, you always want to be careful. Don't.
Was it sunbathing?
No, it was
Probably.
in the grass. Yeah, it was like in those tall grasses. I didn't. Wow. I never saw it.
I'm surprised. Like, did somebody hear it or?
Yes, they heard it
Okay.
and they saw it.
Okay.
And they shouted.
Well, that's a good thing they shouted.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think about that sometimes. I'm like, oh, that would have been a nice little ambulance ride. And
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's dangerous stuff. Those Western
is.
Diamondbacks are nothing to mess with. Not saying that's what it was, but chances are that Colorado's known for those. You told me a story at Castlewood Canyon that you had an encounter with one.
Yes. So we were walking on. It was like the dried up creek bed, so it was very sandy, and there's like a bunch of boulders around there and whatnot. And we passed this little tree, and there's a rattlesnake out there that was sunbathing. And so there was an old fling of mine. We had a dog with us, and she was kind of walking by first, and the dog was with her, and we kind of heard it, and so we scurried by really quick. I was like, we got to keep moving, and like...
it was rattling?
Yeah, it was rattling, and so like it was kind of close to the path, right? It was like right there. We passed it really quickly, and I'm like... So I grew up on like... I grew up in Denver, and then we moved to East Parker, so it was very rural. And out there, I was taught that we always kill black widows and rattlesnakes. Like, those were the animals that we killed, or insects that we killed if we saw them. And so when I saw a snake sitting there, like right next to the path, like there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of traffic. And so I'm like, I have to do something about this. And I see all these boulders around. And so I'm like, I'm gonna boulder this snake. I'm gonna do it.
Oh God.
And so like I got the dog and the girl way behind me in the back.
Yeah.
And then, I just proceeded to try to just huck these things as hard as I possibly could. And like I missed, and like I kind of nicked them, and like you could tell, and like I went and ended it really quick, like went above, and then we got, by that time somebody else came and we like got the snake way off the path. But
Probably a good call.
they're out there. I mean, I don't like the story. I killed this snake. Like, I'm sure
Looking
some
out
people
for
would hate
others.
me for that. But like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that you got to do, and or else it could have been a human life, But it's crazy out there. You got to be careful. Like, you could bust an ankle, you could roll an ankle. really hurt yourself walking.
You got to respect the outdoors.
Yeah.
No, you do. I mean, you talk about the wild animals that are out there too. I'm very grateful I haven't had any major encounters. I think moose are the closest that I've run into.
Moose?
And I'm very
those
fearful of the moose. Though.
Are you?
They're huge.
You know how they attack.
Oh, yeah.
They stomp you.
They're intense. I
Yeah.
grew up in New England. We had big moose up there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean,
what
they
part
would,
of New England?
like central New Hampshire.
Okay, cool.
So 2 hours north of Boston, that
yeah,
area.
my family was all from Boston.
Oh, really?
Yeah, originally.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, us New Englanders, we get rowdy. We potty wicked hard, right? But so these moose used to come out. I was kind of in the country part of New England, and I just remember as a kid, their knees were almost as high as the car. They were
Oh, yeah.
huge.
They're
were
much
huge.
bigger than people think they are.
And people would hit them in the road, and then the animal would fall in the car and crush it. That's how large this animal is.
Yeah.
I've always been told, unfortunately, if you're driving, to not swerve away from a deer because you're going to cause more damage or potentially hurt someone. But you've got to swerve from a moose because you will total your car and then they will fall on you.
It's a big animal.
Huge animal.
Yeah.
Oh, ideally, we don't hit any animals and we're good.
Sure.
But yeah.
It's going to happen. It happens every day, especially up in wild country. Got elk in the streets up in Estes Park just cruising around.
On this subject, I'm going to tell everybody that you just slow down out there.
Yes.
Okay. Look, I had my lead foot as a teenager, early 20s, right? I'll give y'all excuses, okay? But for everybody else, it's time to just drive a little bit more cautious. I mean, I'm that person now that's like the old guy because I see the people behind me being like, why are you going so slow? Like, I'm going 5 over, right? So I'm like in the sweet spot, and I don't know. I feel like everyone's so impatient driving, and it's
Well, especially in places like Estes Park or like Winella Pass is another one that I always run into animals on. It's like, where you are, and this is their area. And I do feel like there's a lot of like, we need to respect.
Absolutely.
This is where they belong. Like, we are intruding on them.
Yeah, we built a town where these guys already were.
Yeah.
This is their natural habitat that we're driving cars through. So it's to be expected, I feel like. But yeah, slow down a little bit maybe,
Hey, I mean, because people when they're driving, everyone kind of turns into their Jekyll and Hyde. Like,
Oh, totally.
it just happens.
I get so angry when you're driving.
Do you get angry?
I do.
I get very angry.
I mean, I don't like act on anything, but I get like, I'm like, what's wrong with you?
Oh, yeah.
I get so
do you
frustrated.
do like the hands? Like
No, I don't do the hands.
I do the hands. Sometimes I'll clap.
Yeah,
I feel like that's better than doing the
You
middle
do the
finger.
clap or you do the big thumbs up.
Sometimes I'll do a thumbs up.
Because you're acknowledging that, okay, this person did something wrong. I'm not going to flip them off or yell out the window at them.
Yeah.
But I feel like the clap and the thumbs up is like, yeah, good job. That gets at them a little more, I feel like.
I always get paranoid that like someone's gonna be like, oh, the weather girl was just such a jerk on the road. I don't know. I'm always very conscious of like, okay, making sure.
You do. I mean, your face is very recognizable. So, do you feel have people ever been like, you're driving, they're like, Kylie, like,
No,
hey,
not
what's
driving. No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Actually, yeah. I mean, now that I think about it, I think I had someone, and it was like we were driving really slow, and they were like, Kylie, I think it was at Cherry Creek or something, and I had no idea where it was coming from, and I was like, oh, hey. It was funny.
That's cool.
But yeah, not like on the highway or anything. They're not like driving next to me, but
Yeah.
no, I'm always just aware. I mean, I don't think that like 99% of people have no idea who I am, but
And that's nice though.
it's so great.
That
yeah.
is a good feeling.
But it also, for those people who watch and who, I feel like I'm in their homes every morning.
Yeah.
I don't want like one bad encounter and they're done with you. And that's all it takes. So I'm
Yeah.
always very aware of that because, and I want people too to feel like comfortable to come up and say hi and whatnot because it's fun and I love chatting with people.
Yeah.
But if you are ever mean or anything, they will never forget that. I wouldn't forget that.
Yeah, that always seems to stick out the most.
Yeah,
It's
and then I
always
wouldn't
cool.
want to watch them anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever they can have an experience with someone they've watched for a long time or trusted, and then you have a cool experience with that person, even if it's for like 10, 15 seconds, that's going to stick with them for sure. And they're going
Yeah.
to stay loyal.
They're gonna remember that.
The moral of the
for sure.
story is just be, but it can be hard at times. I understand how a lot of these guys that are recognizable can get a little bit fed up. They're being chased down in an airport or
Yeah, or
something.
paparazzi, like
I can't
cameras
imagine.
flashing.
Yeah.
No, I will get recognized like once in a while, and I am very aware of it. To have that happen constantly, to be like an actual person who's recognized on a regular basis would be exhausting and draining.
Yeah, I can imagine so.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I could see how that'd be really hard. Like you're kind of like alone at that point because you're isolated by the awareness of you, I guess. So, that's when you tend to like just make other people that are in that same position your peers, I suppose. So then you can relate or, it's really interesting. I mean, this whole podcast gig has been quite a journey. We've been doing this almost 3 years, coming up on 3 years.
Congratulations.
And
Thank
we're
you.
just you know, to Joe Schmoes that like to drink beers and hang out with people, but then like we get awesome people like yourself in here, and it's different, like getting to, you know, build this like platform that I don't know. It's fun to do stuff that means something at the end of the day, and I guess that's my point with this is, you know, at the end of every time that Kevin and I are in here, like it really is satisfying, right?
Yeah.
Like we feel humbled to have these conversations, and so I'm kind of relating this to what you do as well, because, you know, you have this voice and this energy that reaches so many people, and it's just like dealing with that mentally. Like I feel like there was a point where like I needed to just check myself to be humble, because like you're like, oh, I'm making an impact, like, you know, I'm doing something bigger than myself, and it's easy to get wrapped up in that. I don't know. So that's kind of one of my key things to success is staying humble and you know, just treating everybody the exact same. Everybody's the same.
Absolutely. Well, I think too, like with the podcast, people really get to know you guys. That's an hour and a half.
It's very intimate.
Yeah, like I'm on for 2-3 minutes at a time.
Right.
So it's a very different. And I think about the podcast that I listen to religiously. Like I feel like they're my friends.
Yeah.
Like they have no idea who I am, but I'm like, no.
Which one is that?
I love My Favorite Murder.
Okay.
I know. It's like, I know.
Well, why do you have a guilty smile on it?
I don't know, because like I'm not a true crime person. I think I started listening during the pandemic because they were like kind of comedy or whatever. And I don't do any other true crime stuff, but I love, and they talk a lot about mental health and stuff too, and they're so relatable.
Sure.
And yeah, I just love that. I listen because of them, not because of the stories of the true crime.
And that's the name of the game is again, it's like you feel like they're your friends.
Yeah.
You know, did you ever see that meme of the kid eating ice cream next to the ice cream machine? It had like a picture of other kids eating ice cream and he's hanging out with them, and it's like, this is what it feels like to listen to podcasts.
Oh,
you
yes.
know, which is kind of true, and I think that's what's cool about it and why we fell in love with it.
Yeah.
Is we're capturing real conversations that people can relate to, feel like they're a part of. We usually do some would you rathers and some interactive segments. None of that's prepared for tonight. This is just we're just winging it. But the fact remains is that's what's cool about it.
Yeah.
Is people that follow you on the weather can come over here and check out, oh, that's cool. We get to see a different side of Kyler. Maybe hear a story we didn't know about. And that's what's great about it, is capturing those real organic raw moments that we can dive into. There's no time limit on it, you know.
I love it. And I think too, I think real organic people, they stand out. Like when you're authentic, people can tell the difference. We're past the point where you can kind of fake it and be this awful human and have a platform. And of course, some people do. But I think I like that about this situation right here is none of us have phones out. I don't think you guys do. I don't have mine out.
They're sitting over
They're
here.
sitting over there.
They're
Mine's over there.
They're on silent,
They're
though,
on
for
D&D.
sure.
Oh, I don't know if I silenced mine, so we'll find out.
We'll find out.
We'll find out.
Time will tell.
But I think it's a really cool way to get to know someone and like, how often do people just sit down and have a completely uninterrupted conversation?
Exactly.
It needs to happen.
It needs to happen more.
It's so important. I mean, they talk about how social media can depress you, and it's because all these false dopamine receptor readings that your brain's getting, because you feel like you're getting this interaction, you feel like you're getting this, you know, you're like touching these people and being like, you know, involved with them, but you're not talking to anybody. You know, verbally, you can't look in their eyes, you can't pick up on their body language, and like those things like body language and you know, tone of voice and eye contact, those are so important toward, you know, mental development and feeling comfortable in public, and it's so important. And you have 200 friends online that you never interact with, you know, so it's just like, it's a lost art, just talking to people and hanging out and enjoying the present.
I do think the flip side of that, though, because I love social media, because I do feel like I connect with people every morning who I would never get to meet. And I wouldn't get to sit down and have those conversations. But a lot of people will take the time to send me a weather picture. Like I say, I love dogs and babies and weather pictures. And so they'll send me a picture of their dog and baby, and we get to have a really like brief interaction about it.
Which is cool.
It's cool. And it's not necessarily the biggest thing in the world, but like, it's those little interactions with me that makes me feel connected to people, because otherwise I'm just in a room with a camera.
That's
like,
true.
So for me, it gives me that, but you're right, absolutely right. Like my close friends, like I need that time to sit down. But I just love it. I had a woman come up to me once and she's like, you showed my dog on TV on this date at this time. It was like months before. And I was like, oh, and I remembered what the dog was too. And just seeing how excited she was about it. And I remember chatting with her, and we've chatted since. And it's just, I don't know, it's a different type of connection, but for me, it's a safe way to connect with people too, versus like trying to have everyone over to my house. You
Sure.
know?
Well, no, you can't. Yeah, that's not.
That's where social media is. It's kind of a
Yes.
blessing and a curse because you
Yes.
can do cool stuff like that. One of my first experiences, because again, like I mentioned before we went on air, I wanted to be a meteorologist growing up. So
Yes.
WMUR, News 9 back in New Hampshire.
Okay.
I got in good with those guys. I was a huge fan.
I
I
didn't
was
know
writing them
that.
all the time.
Yeah.
They named me a weather watcher.
Oh,
So
yes.
here-
You have this very important job.
I took it very seriously, Kylie. Everyone knew about it in the town. They said he's the guy to ask about the weather.
oh, yeah.
You know, and so there I was. You know, I got the AccuWeather updated radar. I needed the 2-minute updates. I went all in on this thing. My
I
parents
love
bought me all
this.
this
How old were you?
technology. About 12.
Amazing.
And so I would email in every morning, hey, this is what we got going on. This is how much precipitation I have outdoors. And they would put it on the news.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's what I want to do. Didn't quite end up there, but here I am in front of a camera, you know? So
You don't have to wake up at 3 o'clock every morning, so
that's true.
that's a good thing.
That's true. But I still have a lot of love for the weather. It's epic.
What I love about it is that I can go anywhere in the world and I can connect with someone. Weather is universal. Everyone deals with weather.
I mean, what's the filler conversation? Hey,
It's weather.
How's weather
How's the
going
weather?
today? Yeah.
Yeah. It is funny though because I do have to stop myself in public sometimes because people will be talking about the weather, and I'll just be like, Kylie, don't be that person. And then I'll be like, actually, the wind today is going to stop at 4 p.m. Like it comes out, I'm like, darn it, like oh, I'm so that person. And oh no, I do like it though. Although I will say it is funny, like people also have a lot. They love us. They love to hate us. I love to say that like we are like I bring people together. Like there are a few people, a few professions that can bring people together from all political parties. And hating on the meteorologists when they get something wrong, oh, anyone, any political party, any religion, whatever, can come together in agreement of that hatred. So I like to think that I bring people together as well.
It's a good perspective, I feel like.
Yeah, it is funny, and I love the challenge of forecasting. And for me, there's a lot of psychology that goes into it because sometimes, like, okay, I think of the blizzard last March.
Oh, that was gnarly.
That was
That
gnarly.
was the day we moved into the studio.
Oh my gosh.
Hoofing equipment through 3 feet of snow.
You probably should have like postponed a day or two.
We were ready.
We couldn't. We had people that had to record the next day.
Oh my
We had to be
god.
on the air.
You guys, that's amazing because that was a big
My car
blizzard.
was buried. I'll show you a picture when we're done.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. It was funny though. So that storm system, as you guys, I don't know if you remember this, it slowed down when it was coming, and so we watched it and we let people know. People were livid, and I get it. Like there a lot of plans were made and whatnot. But if you went back and watched the forecast, and I actually did a bunch of TikToks, with the updates, people were so angry, and so I was like, I'm saying what's going to happen, and it turned out.
What
fairly
part were
right.
they angry about? That it didn't hit as soon as you anticipated, or?
Yeah, so it was supposed to hit on Saturday. And so a lot of things were canceled on a Saturday.
That's right.
But when you got to Friday, we saw the storm system slow down. So people made those decisions on like Wednesday and Thursday.
Yeah.
And it just slowed and it slowed. And then, but we were saying all Friday, all Saturday morning, hey, this is the update and whatnot. But, people, they change their lives around the weather. And I totally understand their frustrations and I empathize with it. I don't like when a storm system slows down. That's super frustrating for me too. But
And that's hard to predict because that was when the low pressure came in, from New Mexico
Yeah.
and came up and just kind of slowed itself as it
it
progressed.
just slowed. It just slowed right down, and then it really arrived on Sunday, which we said it would as we got closer. But the messaging and the psychology behind it, you're fighting with people's memories because people will be like, I remember weather was never like this when I was growing up. I had a news director once come to me and he goes, it rains every Memorial Day. And I go, oh, okay. He goes, I want you to do a story on why does it rain every Memorial Day? I went and pulled the numbers. It was like 25% of the time. But so the psychology is fascinating, like what people hear, what they remember versus what the facts are.
That is interesting to point out, actually. Yeah, because I've heard, in Denver, I've been here 14 years now. Again, New England, we had hard winters. But out here, here we are, Christmas. We've had, realistically, no snow yet.
Yep.
And
30 inches.
that's
like nothing.
kind of
It's
wild.
nothing. It's very heartbreaking to see.
And so what do you think? Do you think that that's, because you have all these Denver natives like, oh, this is unheard of. We stretched that record out from I
Yeah.
can't remember when. Are we going to get socked in March, do you think? Are we going to get ours?
So March and April are always Denver's snowiest months. I think people forget about that. We get into December. January is our least snowy month on average when you look at that. It's hard to say. I tend to not do long-range forecasting. I don't like it at all because you can say it's a La Nina year and then you can just get absolutely hammered with 2 storms. But I do think that we'll get some good juicy storms in March and in April. We're about to get a really great pattern in the mountains. It's not going to affect the metro, but we've got starting Thursday. So the day this comes out, I suppose, the 20, what is Thursday, the 23rd?
Yeah, tomorrow.
So starting the 23rd through New Year's, every single day in the mountains has a chance for snow. We've just got this flow of moisture that's coming
So
on.
they're getting a
great.
white Christmas. very white Christmas.
They're definitely getting a white Christmas.
We need that.
The Metro,
We're not.
we're not.
It's gonna be
Not
like,
right
what,
now.
55 on Christmas Day? Somewhere in there? Is that what
Yep.
you're forecasting?
I think I've got low 50s.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got the inside scoop here, DCPC.
I know. I feel like, think back though, work ended like, what, at this point, 8 hours ago?
Uh-huh.
That's funny.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people are, like my girlfriend, she was saying, it doesn't feel like Christmas. Every morning we wake
know.
up and there's no snow out there and it's not cold. And for me, I'm okay with it. I kind of
Yeah.
like the no snow. I don't like trying to commute in it. And the older I get, the less I like snow and cold. But as a kid, I loved it. That's
Of course.
actually what got me. So the ice storm in '97, which I
Okay.
don't know if you remember, in New England, we lost power for 2 weeks.
Okay.
I mean, epic. It was a game changer. We had no school.
Yeah,
It
I'm
was
not too
shut
familiar
down.
with this one.
Yeah, this was a big deal. And this is really when I fell in love with weather. I was about 8 at the time.
Yeah.
And so from that moment on, I was always waiting for something epic to happen again. So it took
I'm so glad I
144
get to be the
episodes.
one, though, because I love seeing people get excited about the weather. Like, genuinely.
It's tremendous.
Yeah.
I mean, like we said earlier, it impacts everyone's life.
And you
It's-
remember this. How old were you?
So 97, I would have been 8.
Okay.
And, I remember hearing about it. The forecast was coming like, this is going to be intense.
Yeah.
And it was. It was freezing rain for like 3 days straight.
That's
I
what
mean,
I'll
we
do it.
had ice this thick on the tree branches, and the roads were just ice. It was just freezing rain, power lines down everywhere.
Yeah.
And then a tree, I remember, fell through my neighbor's house. And I remember hearing it at like 2 in the morning. Epic stuff,
Oh my
fire trucks
gosh.
out there. So it was this really intense memory of mine. And again, from then on, I was the Weather Channel all the time. My buddies would come over like, hey, can we watch like some Nickelodeon or something? Like, no,
It's gotta be the Weather
I gotta wait
Channel.
for the weather on the 8s. I need the update.
Oh
I
my
need to know how much
gosh.
snow is coming tomorrow night, and I fell in love. I was hooked. I know my mom's listening to this, and she's gonna remember all this. But
I love this.
It was pretty intense stuff.
Do you have any strong weather feelings?
I mean, I feel like the weather is such obviously an important part of.
Yeah.
I honestly think about the moon when I think about my weather feelings, and
Interesting.
And I appreciate the
Very
moon.
little weather on the moon.
Well, no, but if it wasn't for the moon and the gravity that it pulls on this planet and causing the tides and all this other stuff, like, would weather even exist?
Tides play a role. The tides and like the currents and everything. One of my favorite facts though is why we have weather in general, and that is kind of explains it like a body. So think about Earth. You've got the equator and you've got the poles, right?
Okay.
So and then think about your body. If you have one part that's really, really cold, what does your body try and do?
Heat it
Tries to
up.
heat it
Heat it up.
compensate.
Yeah, exactly. So your body is constantly like, ebbing and flowing. Same thing with Earth. So Earth doesn't like the fact that it's cold on the ends and hot in the middle. And so it sends that transfer of warm air and cold air. And all it's trying to do is equalize itself. And that's what creates the weather patterns all over the world. So that was my favorite meteorology school fact. I was like, that's amazing. Of course, then you bring in the tides, you bring in ocean,
Sure.
you bring in everything else. But at its core, Earth is just trying to, stay chill.
To regulate.
It's just
Yeah.
trying to compensate for the other side, trying to balance itself.
Trying to balance it out. So that's why, especially in the United States, we're so interesting that with the way that we're set up and why we get such severe weather compared to the rest of the world is we've got the Rockies and they force these air masses to collide with each other. So you get that cold, dry air that drops down from Canada, right? Then you get warm, dry air from Mexico, warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico, and they all combine in the lee of the Rockies. And then pretty much most severe weather events that happen throughout the Midwest, even out toward New England, unless it's a nor'easter, start in the lee of the Rockies and travel that way, which is so cool. But yeah, it's just those big air masses coming together.
This is good stuff.
So I feel like I feel like with global warming, climate change, we
Yeah.
can just say climate change because it's not necessarily warming, but that more extreme weather is going to continue to happen.
Yeah.
Like more hurricanes, bigger hurricanes, tornadoes. Like, do you concur with that? Like,
I do, yeah. And I think that, the last 20, 30 years have certainly proven that. And I think that it's become a very politicized issue. And I understand the reasons why. But yeah, I mean, the fact is we're going to see more extreme weather events, and you can call it whatever you'd like to, but that's just kind of what's going to happen as we go forward. And we're already seeing it. I mean, my goodness, you saw it this year with the longest stretch that we've had, or tied for the longest stretch between snowstorms here in Denver. Not even snowstorms, measurable snow.
So one of my favorite types of weather, okay, because I know I went far out there. You asked this question. I'm like, the moon. And you're like, Arthur, what in the hell are you
I
talking
was like,
about?
okay.
But I'm gonna say my favorite kind of weather is on a nice. It's like a hot day, and then like the storm clouds come in, right? And
every
it's like nice and
day in the
cool.
summer.
Yeah, I love those 3-4 o'clock storms.
Yeah,
and
May.
just the rain, and it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
the
I do too.
It's like 10 degrees cooler, and Those are the best. Those are the best.
I lived in Boulder for school, and I would, on my weekends, waitress, or in the summer, I guess it wasn't weekends, it was all the time. But I would waitress the breakfast shift at 6 a.m. and then I'd be off by 2. And it was great because I would nap during the storms every single day. And it was glorious. And then the storms would be done, and then I would go out.
You would take a nap during the storm?
Yeah.
Like that was peaceful, hearing the thunder roll.
Totally. Because it
seeing
gets
the
cool
flash.
all of a sudden,
Yeah.
like you were just saying. Yeah. My favorite is, I love snowstorms.
And they're fun. They're got to be fun to predict too, and follow the models and see how this thing's developing.
Yes, they're extremely challenging.
Yeah,
and I get, that's probably the only time I get super stressed with the weather.
Is trying to pinpoint who's getting what.
Exactly.
And when.
And the impact, because snow especially has such a big impact, but it also, I love the challenge of it. Like it's because the thunderstorms in the summer are fairly easy to forecast for. Like we know about when they're coming and whatnot, but snowstorms, they can have a mind of their own.
They're wild.
And the foothills, they play a big role in it. So when I worked in the Midwest, it was fairly textbook. Everything I learned in meteorology school applied to the Midwest. These big mid-latitude cyclones would come. And I was like, cool, I've learned about this. You get to Colorado, you got to throw a lot of that out the window because the mountains play such a role.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've done that's helped me with forecasting is I go to physically see these towns and see the topography, see the way the mountains work. Like I get to Rabbit Ears Pass and I understand, oh, okay, I understand why you get dumped on. Like you got to go and see them in Colorado. It's almost like part of the process is just visualizing it and being there.
Yeah, taking it all in and analyzing it. Rabbit Ears is crazy.
Yeah.
My first experience on Rabbit Ears was everything it ever lived up to. I was in a Ford Ranger. I was coming up there. It was fine going up. When I got to the top of Rabbit Ears, I couldn't see anything. It was white out.
Yeah.
And the next thing I knew, I was coming down backwards in my pickup truck.
Oh my gosh.
So I was like trying
It
to stop
stresses me out.
Oh, it was intense. Really intense. I mean, fortunately, I didn't hit anything. I was good to go. I grew up in New England. I can handle I can get a little sideways, and I know how to get out of that. But that's what Rabbit Ears' experience was. Why is that so funny? I can.
No, it's just I love you so much that you just crack me up because like I just love you, man. And
it was
when
intense.
you talk with
I'm
your
glad
body.
you're okay.
Yeah, I made it. But Rabbit Ears lived up to everything. Like, oh, you haven't been up until you experience a Colorado Pass. Rabbit Ears and Wolf Creek Pass were the two gnarliest I've been on.
I don't think I've done Wolf Creek Pass in the winter.
Yeah,
my first time driving in snow though. So I finished high school in Arizona, so that's where I learned to drive.
Okay.
So obviously no snow there. I get to, and I was driving my college boyfriend's car to go skiing, and it's 6 a.m. He's passed out. Everyone's passed out, and I woke him up and I go, the tunnel, like we're in the tunnel and saying like icy conditions, and he wakes up and he's like, just slow down. That was all I got. And then I learned to drive in the snow. The first time was on I-70 coming out of the tunnel.
Oh,
Out of the Eisenhower Tunnel?
Out of the Eisenhower Tunnel.
Oh, yeah,
that's
that's
a
an
bit
intense
stressful.
area.
So wait, you were going west? Or?
Yep, we were going skiing.
Okay, yeah. So I mean that's a big hill
Going
to come
down into Silverton
Yeah.
there.
and everyone drives down that hill way too fast.
Totally.
And that hill sketches me out. I don't like that hill, especially when it's all
yeah.
snowy.
I
Yeah.
did not like that hill either, and I was driving his car. Like, I mean, it wasn't even my car that I was in.
And that was your first snow experience?
Driving in the snow. Yeah.
Wow.
Arizona, there's no snow to drive in.
Yeah. Whereabouts in Arizona? Phoenix?
I was in Mesa.
Mesa. Okay.
yeah.
My brother lives down there, so I was just there for the
nice.
NASCAR championship. I love Arizona.
I like to visit it. I hated living there.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it just too hot or?
Too hot. No weather, no seasons.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I might be able to do that.
I cannot.
As much as I love weather, I like warm.
I couldn't do the heat down there.
Oh,
if your
no.
car tires are gonna melt,
Well, that's a little too
know.
much.
But it's too much for like 3-4 months. Colorado, we're literally perfect. Like everyone, like when I moved here, they're from Arizona, they're like, it's gonna be really cold, and I was like, oh no, but no, I mean it's never too cold here.
It's not bad. I feel
Not for
like
long.
we go through a cold snap in January. I feel like I've been here 14 years, and my
Yeah.
meteorology conclusion here is some of the coldest areas I've seen is between like now and mid-January.
Yeah.
We're
I
not
agree
seeing
with
that right now, but like I remember a couple New Years, we were downtown. It was like -4.
oh yeah.
Yes.
And just right around New Year's, I always feel like it gets really chilly around here.
Not this year. It
Not
is
this
cooling
time.
down a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's where we're trending. But yeah,
We're
right now
starting to see some lower lows. It feels like in the
I
coming
love
up.
this so much. It's so fun.
It is fun. Yeah.
I mean, look, anything that you're passionate about is something that's always a good thing to like talk about
Yes.
and kind of open up and shoot the breeze with. I mean, I am very inexperienced with weather compared to you two. Like the lows.
Well, I mean, first of all,
Like,
let's talk
I
about
thought that was
experience
a
here. We got
song.
Kyliebearse in the studio. I'm just a weather nerd that grew up wanting to be what Kyliebearse
Sometimes
is.
weather nerds, though, I'm like, oh, that's you've even got me beat on that. Minnesota, we actually had a program called the Weather Watchers.
Oh,
and-
really? Okay.
And
That's what we had in New Hampshire.
Yeah, it was amazing, and they knew their stuff. And so the first year you were there, you had to like prove yourself and your knowledge.
I was kind of just faking it till I made it kind of thing, Kylie. I just pretended like I knew.
Aren't we all though? Don't you
I
feel like
think
as
so.
adults, like you get to a point where you're like, oh, everyone else is faking it too.
Yeah.
Great.
If you just show up and act like you know what you're talking about, people are like, oh, they just start taking notes. You know, like this guy knows what he's saying. You know,
you just own it. You got to own it.
I think so.
So I sold cars for 3 years.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a shady car dealer because I I have my moral code and I didn't break that to sell something. But there would be times when you would just have to like own whatever you're going to tell this person about this vehicle and just act like you really, and it's interesting because I mean, that goes in any facet of life.
Totally.
Like if you approach something and you approach it confidently, even if you're not confident, people are going to perceive it as you're confident, and then you're going to be able to roll with that. So I know you don't know this. I'll just kind of mention it, but like I had like a heavy drug addiction for a long time, and for like the last year that I was trying to get off of it, like I faked it till I made it. Like I acted like I was off of it, and I told people I was off of it, and even though I was like lying, you know, it was still, and I don't condone lying, but I was trying to fake it till I made it, and eventually you make it. Like, so with whatever you're trying to do, I think it's important to, you know, approach something as if you have accomplished it, you are capable to accomplish it, and you know what it feels like to accomplish it without ever touching it. You know, so that's a great place to start, because then, you know, you're going to fake it till you make it. I mean, all these cliches, I think cliches are great because they're all so true. And when you break them down, like there's really like a lot of layers to cliches and little sayings like that.
Well, first of all, I think it's incredibly respectful that you were able to identify that you had a problem and then get sober and get help, because I think that's one of the most difficult things that anyone can do in life is say like, hey, I need help. And if you're going to fake it till you make it, like if that's what works for you, it works. And it also gives you a taste of, okay, this is what life will look like beyond once I can kick this, once I can do that. So I think that's really, really respectful.
Thank you. I mean, it's a cold, long, hard road, and this
day by day.
This podcast actually, I've given it some credibility because you know I want to be my best self on here. I want to be my best self for Kevin, and I want to be my best self for the guest, and like really, you know, be somebody that could, you know, this is bigger than me. Like everything we do here is bigger than both of us, and sharing that story, and if that could help one person to acknowledge their issue and maybe find a way through it, like it's worth being vulnerable and putting that out there to the world, because I mean it took 5 years of trying to get off and like constantly disappointing myself and lying again and disappointing myself again, and you know 5 years of that, and eventually you're like I've had enough of disappointing myself, and that could be applied to whatever you're trying to do. Like, you know, if you want to cook more at home and you get frustrated when you go out and buy food, or you don't clean up your dishes because you know you're less motivated to cook the next day because you have to clean before. Like it's like all these, you could apply that anywhere, really.
Yeah.
You know.
How many years have you been sober?
So I'm coming up on 1.
That's amazing.
I'm coming up on 1, but
Congratulations.
I don't consider myself an addict anymore because I don't want it anymore. You know, I still think about it from time to time. It's in my head, but like more, you know, who I used to be and more of a reminder of what I am now. And I feel like that's the most important place to be, especially when you're dealing with any issues. Like I know, Kevin, you've had some things that you've overcome too. And we air all this out on the podcast because it's like,
it's therapy.
Yeah, weekly therapy session coming in here.
Oh, I love therapy. Do you hear from a lot of people?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some good, a lot bad, you know, a lot good, a lot bad. It just depends on the week. But the fact remains is that making an impact. People can relate, people can get upset, and that's kind of fun.
I was pretty amazed when, first of all, talking about anxiety on the blog or whatever it is gives me anxiety, which is always like a really fun, you know, process to go through. But I remember when I first started talking about it, and even on air, I would briefly mention my therapist, really briefly, and I would hear from people. And it was a very cool, satisfying, and made the you know, the sweats that I would go through to put it out there really worth it. And I think that I had a lot of friends encourage me to talk about it. And I also saw other people talking about things, and it made me feel like, oh, I can get help. And I'm not abnormal. There's nothing wrong with me for having anxiety, for having mental health issues, or whatever that is. My favorite emails, though, are from parents who say, like, I didn't understand. My kid has anxiety, and I don't know. So thank you for verbalizing it, for talking about it. I feel like I have a little bit of a better understanding of what they're going through, which has been very, very cool. It's been the most rewarding part of starting a hiking website that has that mental health aspect of it.
Yeah, again, it's capturing that realness that we talked about. You know, you're being you. You're in and out there. You went through these things, and it's okay to say, hey, I struggle with this or that, and it's okay to get help. I mean, a lot of our listeners know I went through anger management. I was a very angry person, still struggle with that till this day. And, it took years to acknowledge it and to want to make a change about it. Because for a while I just owned it. Oh, I'm from New England, I'm just angry. That's bullshit, right?
Yeah.
Everyone can tighten up at any moment.
Yeah.
If you want to make a change, do it. And sometimes it helps to hear other people's success stories along the way. And so it's a great thing to share that.
I like that you say that you're still, how did you phrase it?
I still battle with it.
You still battle with it. I mean, I've had to accept that anxiety is never going to be cured, which
Right.
frustrates me to all ends sometimes. But yeah, it's just gonna be something that's lifelong. I'm in a really great place right now, but I know next month I could have something that triggers me, and then I've got to work through it again.
Sure.
And I don't know if you guys have experienced this too. Every time you overcome a little bit of an obstacle, it gets a little bit easier the next time. You have more tools in order to help and get through that. And so it's not as bad the next time. You know what you're going to kind of be up for.
Yeah, absolutely. Repetition is the mother of skill, as they
Yeah.
say. So the more, challenges that you're presented with that are similar, you go, okay, I handled it this way last time. Now let me try this approach because this seemed to work.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I've approached, my anger issues. When I feel like I'm about to lose it, take a walk, do the 10-second, all the cliches. Yeah, you don't just fix it like that. I mean, like Arthur says, you got to put on your armor every day and go to war with yourself
Yeah.
to be your best self every day.
It's a battle of the mind because, and like, look, I said, I don't want opiates ever again, but I know that like I have to stay vigilant, right? Because I have been addicted before. But I agree, like it is like a daily battle, and the best thing that you can do is acknowledge it, right? And be neutral about it. Like, don't beat yourself up because you got a problem. Like
but it's so
every single
easy
person
to.
does.
It is.
It's so easy
is.
to.
That's where the mind goes.
Yeah.
You want to be like almost, I don't want to be embarrassed, but like, it's hard to own that part because we always want to be our best selves.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think it's okay to put, something we're struggling with as our best selves, because it's also you. This is a part of who we are. Our struggles, our success, all of it is who we are. It's what makes us go day to day. So, because I felt the same way. It was embarrassing. Like, I don't want to be that guy that loses his temper over something stupid.
Yeah.
Well, that is embarrassing.
It can be. It certainly can
Well,
be.
also anger management. Do you struggle with this? I mean, it's the butt of a lot of jokes.
Well, yes.
Yeah, I mean, in general, like it's something that society I think laughs at.
Sure.
Is going to anger management.
Yeah.
And so finding a way to, oh no, this is real for me.
Yeah, and it took a while to really, come to grips with it and figure out how to analyze it, how I felt about it, and what to do about it.
I think that fake it till you make it super interesting because when I'm having like an anxious episode, I still have to go on TV and I still have to do my job.
Yeah.
And when I was just learning, I was probably in my mid-20s and I was just getting diagnosed with anxiety and finally understanding what it was. I finally understood why my body would suddenly start shaking, why my mind would start racing. I was starting to get it, like why am I sick to my stomach? And then I started talking about it. And I had been hosting the show for about 3 years. And I remember I came out and talked about it. And one of the guests, who I remember having a massive anxiety episode at the desk while I was interviewing him, he's like, oh, I never knew you had any sort of anxiety problems or mental health issues. And I remember being like, you couldn't tell. I was next to you. And inside I was dying. Like I felt like the whole world was crumbling around me. And so it is interesting because sometimes being on TV when I'm having these anxious episodes or whatever is going on forces me to smile, forces me to calm down, and gets me out of my head and will actually help a little bit to get me through it. It's still really hard, but it is interesting that I will feel like the whole world can tell that I'm having the worst day and I'm stressed out.
And nobody can even
And no one usually picks up on it.
No, you know what is one thing that they will pick up on, and I don't know if people know that this is what's happening. If I'm anxious on TV, I talk a lot faster.
Do you?
And I will get emails.
Like you rush through it?
I rush through it because I don't want to be on.
Right,
I don't want everyone looking at me. Everyone's going to know. They're going to know that my mind is racing, that I'm struggling. And so I'll go really fast. And then I'll get an email and I'll be like, good reminder. Time to slow down. And then just slowing down, because like for me, it's like your heart is racing, you're breathing so fast. So everything just speeds up. And so it's very interesting because I'll physically slow down my speech, and that will help to calm my anxiety too.
It's always like those little tricks of the trade because, when we're on air here, if you get like an episode of hiccups or you got to sneeze or something, like that can really throw a wrench in the works. But it's how you're going to roll with it,
Yeah.
And because I know exactly what you're talking about. I've been, back when we used to open the episode with our ad reads and stuff, like it was pressure on, cameras on, live action, we would do these reads, and the anxiety would build a little bit, and I would say, I would just make up words, like filler words, on the fly. But one thing I was going to echo on is going back to like most people not picking up on if you're having an anxiety issue or if maybe I'm screwing up over here or there's like an awkward pause. When it's watched back, 90% of the time, no one picks up on it.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, unless they're really, really looking at it under a microscope.
I love it, and I also hate it because sometimes when I'm that anxious, I want someone to be like, recognize it, be like, oh, you need some help. Let's talk right now.
Yeah.
It's almost like, okay, if you're sitting there bleeding, someone goes, oh, let's get you a Band-Aid. Like, how can I help? What can I do? So I think sometimes with anxiety, people, at least I know, I feel like it's like I suffer very silently. And I'm like, I need to be the one to reach out for help if I need it. Like, because no one can tell. It just blows my mind.
Wow.
The amount of times and I'll look back or I'll watch things back and be like, can I tell? And I won't be able to tell. But inside, I feel like I literally feel like I'm dying.
It's nuts because, you know, you're like in these two different paradigms of reality, what is being perceived and what you're perceiving. And it's crazy. There's so many scenarios that are like that. Like because, I mean, growing up, I was extremely insecure. Like, I got in my own head about everything. Like, I would talk myself out of opportunities. Like, I'm not good enough for that. Like, why would anybody want to, like, you know, and that would, like, I would have this inner narrative that would be toxic and just kind of would put me down. But no one saw that. And so.
And no one probably saw you that way that you were talking about yourself.
Yeah, it was all in my head.
Yeah.
You know, so it's, like, whatever it is, because everybody has something that.
Everyone has something.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, try to acknowledge it because that could be your friend. Like, you don't know what you're going to learn from that. Like, at this point in my life, with everything I've experienced, like, I expect there to be problems. Like, I expect there to be challenges. I like to change the word to challenges. And, you know, I'm ready for the next challenge. Like you know, I'm confident in myself that I will be able to handle it. But it takes time to develop that mentality. And you have to start by acknowledging your weaknesses first, and it's difficult. That first step is difficult to, like, really be like, well, I'm really lacking in this and this area. Like, it's hard to have that conversation because you're literally telling yourself, like, that you need to improve, and everybody wants to be as good as they can be, or they're prideful, or, you know. So I mean, acknowledging your anxiety, acknowledging your anger issues, acknowledging the addiction, like, that's a strong place to be.
That's step one.
Mm-hmm. Well, and not beating yourself up for it. That's been one of my biggest struggles is, and I went through a really rough breakup a few years ago, and I would get so mad at myself for being sad. Like, oh no, you're supposed to be living your life. Like, go out there, go do whatever. And so I wouldn't acknowledge the feelings and I would shove them down. Mm-hmm. And I told my therapist, I was like, I'm doing great. I haven't cried in 3 weeks. And she's like, you had 2 panic attacks the last 3 weeks. And I was like, yeah, but, like, does that count? And she's like, you're not acknowledging your feelings and you're getting really angry at them. And so it was really weird when I shifted my mindset. And that's just, you know, one instance in particular where I stopped beating myself up. She goes, just let yourself be sad. And so now if, like, a moment comes up where I'm sad or I'm angry or, you know, I'll give you an example of this past weekend. I get home from skiing and I just bought a house and I'm an open mind too. There we go. Cheers. I just bought a house 3 months ago, and
Congratulations.
Thank you. Never thought I'd be able to do it in Denver. I get home from skiing, and it has sprung a leak. There's a leak, and it's spewing everywhere, and I can't get it to stop. And finally, like, you know, I'm FaceTiming my dad. I'm doing whatever I can, and then eventually I get to the thing where I have to screw it on. I can't turn the water off. I didn't think about the fact that in order just to turn it off and to get it to stop, I was going to get sprayed and be soaking wet. So I'm soaking wet. It's like 30 degrees outside. And at some point, I just sit down and start bawling. And I call my cousin, and I was like, I know everything's fine, but I'm really frustrated right now. And I just need to be frustrated for 5 minutes, and then I can move on.
Hear me out.
And she did. She's like, I got you. She's like, go. She's like, listen. I'm like, don't call me a strong, independent woman right now. I don't want to hear it. I'm like, I just want to be angry and pissed off. And it helped. Like in the past, I would have been like, don't feel this way. You're stupid for feeling. I would get this inner narrative, and I would tell myself how stupid I was for having these emotions. And instead, I was like, we're going to be real sad and real mad for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we're going to get it together. And it made a huge, huge difference with, you know, with the breakup, with any professional stuff that happened. It's still something I have to battle because my first reaction is, you're stupid for feeling this way. Don't feel this way.
So I mean, that's like the pressures of society, I feel like. Normalize what is okay.
Yes.
Like, but that's really up to the individual. And I feel like, you know, it's really important to acknowledge your emotions, but it's also important to not be emotional. So, like, you know, sometimes I'll cry on the pod over something that I feel that emotion, and I'm not going to, like, hide that, but at the same time, like, I'm not going to overreact emotionally to everything in the day. So it's like, you know, that fine line where it's like you want to feel the emotions, you want to see those through, because then that's going to be a self-building moment, but at the same time, That's being proactive, opposed to just being extremely emotional all the time about everything. That's being reactive, right? And they always say, choose being proactive over being reactive. Create your life instead of letting it happen to you, sort of thing. But emotions they're a tricky thing, and sometimes it's a journey, and sometimes it's great to go on that journey of like self-discovery and really figuring out like, I'm gonna cut some of this bullshit out of my life right now, and really be on the beginning of that staircase and like looking at that first step. Like I'm gonna effing take it. Like that's a cool place to be.
Yeah, emotional struggles, they're real. And it's important to talk about them. I don't think they should be swept under the rug. And echoing back on social media, I don't know how many times I've said this on the air, but it's important for the influencers to also show the bad times, because it's not always going to be peaches and cream. It just isn't. We got to balance this thing. Going back to how Mother Earth operates, it's a balance. It's a yin and yang. You're going to have bad with the good, and it's important to also put the bad out there, because it's real.
Yeah,
we're going to have those rainy days. We're going to struggle, and it's not. I don't know. I just struggle with social media, always focusing on, look how great everything is.
Excuse me.
When the reality is, we all know everyone's got something they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And it's important to recognize that and respect it, and be there for thy neighbor and friends.
Absolutely. It's scary, though.
It is.
I get just very nervous every time I post any sort of anxiety post or anything like that. I literally will start like shaking. It's very scary. And then I think the response though always makes it worth it, because I think if you're questioning, should I talk about this? The answer is yes, because you will hear from someone.
So have you heard about the 5 second
rule?
Like picking food off the floor?
Oh,
no, not that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the important one. I'll let you take it.
Okay, I'll take it. So this isn't mine, though. I heard this somewhere else.
That's okay.
And it was a female motivational speaker. She was killing it. I wish I remembered her name. But she was talking about how life happens within 5 seconds for everybody. Maybe even less, like 3 to 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Right? So I decide, like, okay, I'm gonna get up and go on a walk right now. Within 3 to 5 seconds, your mind is going to start trying to convince you why you shouldn't. So it's like you have this 3 to 5 second time period that every decision that your intuition tells you to do, you got to jump on that like immediately. And it's been crazy because Kevin and I have been doing this for
it's changed our life.
Yeah, we've been doing it for like at least 3 months. Would you say?
So it's ignoring. It's like skipping the 3 to 5 seconds.
No. So it's
like we're gonna
not talking yourself out of it of something.
Yeah, we're gonna invite this person. We're gonna call them right now.
Are we gonna invite Kyliebearse on? Do it. We have 3 to 5 seconds.
Now.
Send it right now.
5 seconds. Yeah.
Don't try to talk ourselves out of it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And here you are. So it's those kind of things.
Oh, that's funny.
Because it happens to me all the time. Like, oh, should I go do this? No, I probably shouldn't.
Should I go do the dishes in the kitchen?
Right.
Like, I could chill for a little bit longer.
Commit to it in 5 seconds.
Yeah, 5 seconds.
Okay. I like that. Especially with the dishes. I will put those off for a very long time.
Yes,
I don't know, I'm tired.
Well, that's one of my things. I don't like dishes.
Yeah. Or responding to emails.
Oh, really?
I hate responding to emails.
Yeah, I'm same with text messages. It applies to that same thing. It's something that like you someone is waiting for a response, but it's like I don't really want to do it right now. I'll get to it.
And then all of a sudden it's been days, and you're like,
it's been days, right? And I mean, within reason too. I mean, you're not always going to have that 5 second availability.
No, but I like that though. It's okay. I
in
had
regards
this thought,
to your
let's go
post,
do it.
like if you're next time you're feeling like I'm going to put something out there that maybe I'm just send it 5 seconds or less.
Oh, this will be very helpful because I will like sit there for like 25 minutes and be like, should I do it? Should I do it? Like
send it.
You should have sent it 24 minutes and
55
seconds.
Think of all the things I could have gotten done in that amount of time.
Yeah. I mean, look, another cliche thing, but it's been beneficial around here anyway. So we've been kind of preaching the 5
I love
second
that.
rule.
I'm going to take that.
I always like to get on these kind of motivational kicks weekly in here. Just, there's too many opportunities to like complain. And actually, I talked about this last week with our guest last week. I was like, look, let's do a challenge. No complaining this week. I'm going to be honest. I complained a lot this week still, and I failed that no complaining challenge. So I needed to be humble there and at least say that. But it's been fun though because I've been like noticing when I'm complaining. I'm like, oh wait, I'm about to bitch about this. Like, I should stop.
Yeah. Because no one really wants to hear it.
No one wants to hear it.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though we're feeling it, how are you going to manage it? Yeah, I think I made it 72 hours in that challenge. That's about as far as I
Pretty
made
good.
it.
I want to do this.
The no complaining challenge. We try to do weekly challenges.
I love that.
Yeah.
Do you have a new one for this week?
We'll probably come up with one before the episode's over.
Okay, cool.
I don't have one yet.
Usually Art's pretty good on the fly with that.
We'll come up with something here.
Yeah. I do try. I try to not complain, but like
it's hard to do.
It's so hard. Why is it so hard to just like find the positive and stick to it?
It's
and
a
not
difficult
get
thing.
stuck on it.
It's natural. Okay, so you picture like a vortex of water, right? And like the center and everything is pulling in there. That's the natural thought process, and then the lower you go, the more negative it is. So it's literally more effort to redirect your thoughts into a positive, optimistic type of line of thought. Like that takes more effort than it does to complain about stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why so many people complain, is because that's the easy way. Like instead of addressing it, finding a solution and overcoming your complaint, you're just going to try to find someone to relate with you about, yeah, this is crappy.
And that my favorite saying that my dad has is, it's the easiest thing in the world to be unhappy. It really is. It takes no effort. You can find people who want to be miserable with you, but to acknowledge whatever the complaint is and to, work through it or rise above it. And I'll do that with my friends sometimes, or coworkers. If they're going off about something, I go, okay, is there a solution here? Because if there is, let's find it. And if not, let's just let this be in the past and move on. And that's something I have to tell myself all the time too. But I strongly believe that happiness is a choice. I think even when you're going through your hardest of times, you can find ways to find that happiness and find that peace and acknowledge that and focus on that. It's difficult finding that positive and focusing on it, but it's definitely doable.
It's definitely doable. And I like what you said earlier. You're like, I just need 5 minutes to complain about this, and then I'm moving forward. So
And I couldn't ignore it, because that's what I think too. There's toxic positivity, and I can't stand that. Because one time I had a bad
Toxic
morning,
positivity?
and someone goes, "You're sending out bad vibes into the universe," and I was like, well, now I'm stressing about my vibes that I'm sending out. Like, that's not going to be helpful. And so my therapist has really helped me with that, where it's like, feel your feeling, don't dwell on it, but don't shove it down and ignore it. Have your 5 minutes, and then I got it fixed.
So I've heard about this toxic positivity thing too, and like I feel like in my case it would be, I am trying to be positive when people don't want to hear it, right? So it's like you're like overreaching, being like, oh, like, sometimes you just so it does exist, right? There's too much of anything, right? You could have too much of anything, but the whole happiness as a choice thing is that's so true, because there's always a positive and a negative in any situation, and those are two parallel lines to the end of existence. Like, and we have a choice where we want to focus our thoughts. Like, you might not know that, like you might not practice being conscientious of your thought process, but if you notice that you're thinking negatively, then you can actively choose to look at it differently. And so I totally agree. It's a choice. Like, we have a choice to be positive. We have a choice to not be positive or to be happy. And it's a challenge.
I think that it doesn't, though, take away from, okay, things aren't hard in my life right now. Like, that's not what happiness is. Happiness is not everything is perfect.
Correct.
Happiness is just, okay, finding the peace within the chaos when you're trying to do that. So I think it's very interesting in that way when you start to change the way you look at it. And that's what cognitive behavioral therapy is, and that's what really helped me with my anxiety. I actually didn't know my therapist was even doing it to me. She was helping. She would ask me if there was a different way to think about something, and I'd be like, yeah, I guess we can think about it this way. Okay, cool. Okay, fine, I'll think about it that way. Like, and I didn't realize she was doing it. And then, like, eventually I was like, are we actually doing any work in therapy right now? She's like, yeah, it's a science of, and she explained it to me, and I thought it was just fascinating. But it's just retraining your brain instead of to immediately going to the negative and the nasty. Okay, cool. What's another way I can look at this? What's a different, outcome here?
Yeah, it takes repetition.
Oh, a lot. And it's easy. You can fall back into it too.
Oh, yeah.
I stopped therapy for 6 months once, and I fell right back into those same habits. So now I make sure I look at it as like a checkup. I go about once a month, once every 6 weeks. And unless things get really tough, then I bump it up. But it's almost like a check-in.
I think it's great.
Fantastic. Yeah.
I think it's great that you do that. And I've actually been wanting to get back into therapy myself, just because of how good I felt.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is my therapy weekly, and Art does a good job holding me accountable and keeps me positive with a lot of, stuff every week. But there's just something about knowing that we're going to go talk. I have a designated place to work on myself. I got great friends, family, my girlfriend. I got plenty of people I can talk to. But there's something about having a therapist that I think it's, overlooked, or people look at it as like weakness. It isn't.
Yeah, no,
I think it's strength.
It's totally not. And I do feel like there's like that whole, oh, well, you need to talk to a therapist, or like, no, because to be vulnerable, that's one of the most empowering places you could be, is to be vulnerable. And like, that's okay, because you, at that point, like, if you're vulnerable, like, you don't care what other people think. Like, you're putting it on the line, and anyone who's too proud to feel like they can't talk about their emotions and improve somewhere, like,
we can all improve.
Yeah.
We can always improve.
It's so important, I think, I think there was a stigma for a long time. I think it's going away a lot, and I think there's a lot more coverage because it's also expensive, and finding one can be difficult. So
Yeah, because you have to find the person with the right personality, right?
it's
That
like
kinda-
dating a little bit. And actually, I have a blog post on how I found my favorite therapist, because honestly, this is the best way I found all my favorite ones, and it's taken 1 or 2 sessions. Psychologytoday.com. You put in your insurance, you put in everything, like mine's anxiety. Do you want, like, I like women to be my therapist,
Makes sense.
a little bit older than me. Yes, but like some people prefer a man, whatever that might be. And then you read their bios. So it's almost like online dating, but like in a way. And I think it's important too. We all have our friends and family, but to have someone removed and unbiased and with that background training in the science is super helpful.
Yeah, so true. Because I definitely went through a couple where I was like, this isn't going to work. It was like just an immediate personality conflict or whatever. I remember an experience where I went in and it was, I kind of laid out why I'm here, what I want to work on.
Yeah.
And it was just really awkward. Like, here I am being vulnerable, telling you what I want to work on. And it almost felt like I was being judged and like laughed at a bit. So that was a horrible experience, which most people probably would have gotten scared away from therapy, because I've heard that before too.
Yeah.
And, you stick with it and you find somebody you vibe with. I guess, I hadn't looked at it like online dating, but it kind of is
It's
a little
totally
bit.
okay to dump your therapist.
Yeah.
If it's not working, get rid of them.
This isn't going to work.
Or if you don't like them from the first time, like if it doesn't feel right, that's okay. It's kind of like dating in a way. Like you've got to find someone who works for you. And that's why, like, I just changed insurance 6 months ago, and I was like, and now my therapist isn't covered, which is a huge bummer. But I was like, me, like, we're good. It's worth the money. It's an investment in yourself and your health too.
Yeah.
Because your physical health has a big part of your mental health
Absolutely.
as well.
Yeah.
Stress can do crazy things to your body.
Big time.
Well, and look, money is so important, but it's a tool. If
Yeah.
you think about it, at the end of the day, money is a tool. Like, money can't buy you happiness, but it can provide you the freedom to do things that make you happy. So it's like money is temporary too. Like, you don't get to take any of it with you. Like,
Yeah.
when you're about to die, like, are you going to be thinking about how much money you have in your bank account? Maybe if you're trying to leave some to people and like do the whole estate thing. But I mean, I have this whole inflation on money because at my lowest point, like, I was spending like, easily I could spend like 160 just to get high once for one night, right? So like, I would justify that. So now it's like, my shoes are super comfy and like they were $150, but I looked at that like, dude, $150, like, I'll be wearing these things for years.
Yeah.
So like, I have this different view of money now where it's like, because I used to, like, money was way inflated in my head and like the dollar was way depreciated in my head because all that, but it's important. So like, to where you're still paying for the therapist, even though it's not covered by the insurance, hell yeah, it's worth that money because
definitely.
because the trust is there, the relationship is built, and like, if it makes you feel good at the end of the day, then like, money doesn't have anything over like feeling good about yourself and feel like you're doing the right thing.
And your health, mental health, physical health, all of it's tied together.
Yeah, you can't put a price tag on investing in yourself.
Absolutely.
That's going to be the best investment you can make, being our best selves. And it's going to take work. It's like an old car. You got to throw parts at it sometimes. You need a tune-up from time to time.
And I don't think it's ever done.
No, it's
you're-
never done.
You're never, like, I don't know about you guys, but like, I've been in a really good place probably this last like couple of months. And I have, for the first time, just been basking in that. Versus before, I'd be like waiting for whatever's next. I'm like, something will come. Something will be tough. Something will be anxiety-inducing. But right now, my family is healthy. I've got a job that I love, friends that I love, and I'm just basking in it.
Count the blessings while you
Count the
got 'em.
blessings, because I've been through some tougher times, and I remember those were so difficult. And so right now, like, every single day, I'm just incredibly grateful and incredibly thankful. And I think that's part of mental health too, is learning to
appreciating the
when
now.
it's good.
Yeah.
Like, you're sober now. Like, do you appreciate every day when you?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I can't even like really put it into words. I'm gonna get emotional. But yeah, it's such a, I mean, like, life was gray for the longest time. And like what Kevin was saying, like, because Kevin, like, I love you, man.
Love you too,
He's
brother.
been through there through so much of it. And yeah, that's a serious question. And yes, I am so much happier now than I ever was underneath the influence. And I will look back on, because it wasn't that long ago, like, it was like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, where I was, still battling in my mind. But, that war will continue, but like I won the big battle, and that was. But I disappointed myself for 5 years. You know, I lied to people that I cared about for 5 years. I had even stolen, you know, pills from people's houses. Like, you know, I was a thief. I was a liar. I was all these things, and like, I can't sit here and focus on those so much because I'm not that anymore, right? But I learned from that, and so, yeah, like I find so much joy in the little things now, and it's crazy. Like, if anyone out there is struggling and you're in the gray, like, and you're really trying and it's hard, just keep fighting, because every single day is a battle. And like, I agreed with you because you're talking about success and how, you know, you got, it never ends, right? And I totally agree with that, because, you know, if you're really serious about doing something with your life, you're going to do it every single day of your life, every single day. And that's what's going to shape you, is the little things you do every day will make this big picture. And so every single day, like, I'm so thankful for my, you know, job, my, you know, finances. I'm comfortable again. And like, it's just, life can be whatever you really want to make it. And unfortunately, a lot of us just let it happen, and we're not being proactive about what we want. And that's where we all should try to be, is in a place where we put ourselves underneath the magnifying glass. Like, you know, stop judging all these other people and what they do and what their intentions are. Like, why are you going to sit here and judge everybody else? Like, do you really look inward? So I don't like to judge other people. You know, I don't know what that person's going through. Like, you know, I've had my bad days where I was an asshole for no reason to a stranger, you know, and they didn't deserve that. You know, so if people are mean to me, I just look at it like they're projecting, and, you know, I'm going to project something else. I'm going to do something different.
It's so funny you say that, because that's my thought process with viewer emails, because we get some nasty ones.
Oh, I'm sure.
And
I
they
can
can
imagine.
be about your looks, about your personality, about your dress, whatever it is. And to be honest, for the most part, I'll get one every once in a while if I'm having a bad day that'll hit at home. But what I always think about, because I always respond with kindness, because a couple of times in my past I didn't. I was, you know, like, oh, you're a terrible person or whatever. What's going so wrong in your life that you've got to take time to send a nasty email to someone that you saw on the news? Like, what's like, because there's something going on. A happy, fulfilled person is not going to see someone on the TV and be like, I'm going to tell that person how ugly their nose is and how I hate looking at their face every day. That's not a happy person.
It's ridiculous.
You summed it up for sure.
And that's okay, because we've all had those really low moments. And so I just try to stay on the up and say, thank you so much. I appreciate your feedback. I hope you have a really great day. And some of the nastiest ones, I've had coworkers link to the mental health hotline and be like, it sounds like something is really going tough in your life right now. I hope you know we're here for you. Here's where you can find help. And actually, they've written back and been like, you're so right. I'm going to reach out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that's only happened like a couple of times. Sometimes you don't hear back or whatever. But I will say 9 times out of 10, if someone sends a nasty email and I respond with kindness, they respond with kindness. And it brings us kind of back. And then I feel like I have like a fan for life, or a viewer or a friend for life.
It's interesting how that works. We had a guest on a couple weeks ago that kind of described what you're talking about as pulling people down to the floor so they can stand higher than you. You know, and that's kind of...
misery loves company.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, if they're struggling, they're not happy with what's going on, they're going to fire off a couple nasty emails. We see it on this end as well. You know, it's... I don't know if it's a way for them to, you know, feel better about themselves, or just that's how they cope with whatever they're going through.
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a real thing. But, yeah, they pull them down to the floor to try to stand taller than them. You know, and the best way to handle it is to kill them with kindness.
It is.
You know, I look at it as all noise is good noise. If people are making noise, it means you're making an impact.
It's true.
You know, that's how I handle that without getting fired. Because I read, so I can be like, oh, you know, that anger started caveman DNA comes up.
Totally.
You know.
Oh my gosh, I believe it. Especially, I mean, a podcast too. There's so much more that they could potentially get upset about.
Oh, there's a lot of juice on this show. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot we could dig up.
I mean, look, one of the most important lessons I've ever learned, taught by my mama.
Good old mama.
And she taught to me that, son, don't ever take anybody's opinions personally. Like, at a very young age, she was telling me this, like, drilling it in my head, like, don't take it personally. You know, they might be having a bad day. That's their bad day. If they're mean to you, like, don't take it personally. They're just having a bad day. And I guess, like, that's
so hard to learn, though.
It is. It is difficult. It's hard to, like, practice that. And to this day, I still take things personally. Like, even though I try to not take things personally. But it's just, like, once you're sure in yourself and like, you really discover what's important to you, then it's like I'm sidelining all this garbage. You know, people want to try to project and be negative or whatever, or be upset. Like, you know, that's your day. Like, that's not gonna be my day. And it feels good to be in that kind of position where it's like, you know, my emotions will not be dictated by your emotions, sort of thing. And you know, maybe that's my challenge for this week is let's all work really hard to be more definitive in ourselves and you know, be honest and truthful and aware, accept who we are, and like push off anything else that anyone else is saying, like trying to put negativity, you know, shade my lamp sort of stuff. Like, like that's the challenge this week. Let's not take things personally. Let's be proactive in ourselves. Yeah.
I love this.
It's a good challenge.
I wish I'd had that in my early 20s, starting in news, because I will say it was less about the viewers' emails, but what, especially as young women in weather, where we're almost full body on the green screen, there's a lot that's said to you from coworkers, from bosses.
I can imagine.
I had one, and you think it comes from a good place, but you're also not entirely sure. I remember one of my coworkers comes up to me and she's just like, "Are you wearing a push-up bra?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think so." She was like, "It's making you look fat. Don't do that." And it got in my head. And for years and years, I was like, I can never wear that. I'll look fat. Like, and there was a lot of that happened. And I'm a fairly small person, but for TV standards, I was told I was too curvy. I was too large. You know, like, I mean, it was very, very interesting, the things that are said to you. And I would love to go back in time and tell like 22, 23-year-old Kylie.
I mean, because how surface level is all that stuff?
I mean, it's,
you know?
you're on TV, so there is a level of like, and so that's what you're told. You're told, okay, well, this is about, you know, there is some professionalism and whatnot, but there's also that mind twisting that goes into it that makes you question who you are, what you look like, and what you're giving off to people. It's very interesting. And I feel like I'm in a good place 10 years in, but I would love to go back and be like, hey, listen to this. Like, this would be really good to hear.
That's just being in the trenches, taking grenades, as I like to say. You know, you've been out there, been doing it a while. You know, it's unfortunate that it's, you know, you're there to give the weather. You know, that's what we're here to listen to for the day. It shouldn't be too much about what you look like, but I understand show business, how all that kind of plays into it. But yeah, the fact remains, we're trying to get the weather report. You know, so that's good that you were able to learn that young, move on. 10 years later, you say, you know, you've learned the business.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that like I never get affected by a viewer comment. Lately it's about my shoes.
Your shoes.
People have so many comments about my shoes.
Hey, I mean, shoe game comes strong. Like, I come on, everybody has to
I know.
respect the kicks.
I mean,
right?
yes, but here's the deal. I am on for 6 hours a day. Our building is a full city block.
Yeah.
Wearing heels for that long hurts.
Yeah,
and
no,
so I
thank
have like 3 or 4 pairs of comfy heels, and actually my boots I'm wearing right now, sometimes I'll wear them on air. And you would think that like the world is coming down. They'd be like, "Why'd you wear the same shoes 4 days in a row?" I'm like, because I haven't gotten a pedicure and I want to wear the open-toed ones. Like, what do you want from me? I don't get a clothing allowance. It's so funny.
Do you want these raptor claws on there?
Right? No, you don't. So I don't know what it is lately. I was like, this has never happened in my career that there's been so much focus on my shoes.
That's interesting.
Isn't that weird?
That people are that concerned about your footwear.
Very concerned about my footwear.
So they're not even paying attention to, okay, here in Parker it's going to be this degree. They're like, what? She's wearing those shoes
Look
again.
at those shoes again. Someone literally today was like, why do you wear the same shoes every day? Like, I don't know. I haven't gotten a pedicure in a while.
Like,
Wow.
My boots are comfy.
No, I've kind of felt like that with my shirts. Like, you know, how many times have I worn this shirt on air, or, you know, things like that. But that's, you know, whatever. So one thing we do like to ask every single person that comes in here is if you could give humanity a piece of advice to be better tomorrow. So all of humanity is going to be better tomorrow because of this. What would be the one piece of advice you would give?
So one of my best friends and I, we have a rule. If you see something about someone that you like, you have to go tell them. And you have to go give them that compliment. And so, like, because sometimes you'll see someone be like, I love that shirt. I love, you know, those shoes from across the room. And so if we say that to each other, now we go, okay, go tell them. It's a stranger. And
5 seconds.
5 seconds.
There
You
it
just
is.
got, seriously, you just got to do it. Well, of course, COVID times is a little bit harder, but we have met some of the most incredible people that way. And think about it. Is there anything that feels better than a compliment from a stranger? They have nothing to lose, to gain anything. There's no ulterior motive. They're just telling you a compliment. And it feels so good. So that would be my, and of course I'm sure there's like world peace and kindness and whatever, but like that's like
that's
one
tangible though. Anybody
it's
can
tangible.
do that. Yeah.
It's easy. It's easy, but it's really difficult. But once you get over it, and you get over going up to a stranger and going, "Excuse me, I think your Santa hat's the greatest thing I've seen today." Like that's you, and you walk away. Yo, look at that.
Yes.
You feel so good. So that'd be the one thing I would do.
I love that.
It's little.
That's a good
it's
piece
little,
of advice.
But it makes a bigger impact.
It's
going to
impact people's day.
People.
Yeah, that's terrific. I like
And
that
you feel
advice.
good.
Yeah, because we've heard 134 different answers to that, and that's the first one we've heard on that. And I like that. I think I want to apply that tomorrow. Go out there and just
Try it. It's
I
fun.
love doing that. I'm already a firm believer of doing that. Like I'll like man it out the car. Like I've done a lot of construction, and like I've gotten the looks like all this dirty construction worker, and like so I know that they get judged even though they're great people.
Yeah.
And so like these guys were finishing up a fence in the neighborhood, and I kept seeing them work on it, and like it's almost done. And I stop out the car, and I'm like, "Hey guys," and they're like, "What the hell is this person gonna say?" And I'm like, "That fence is kick ass. You guys are doing an awesome job." And they're just like, "Thanks, man." But it's free to do that. Like it's
Totally.
free for me to do that. It's free for you to do that. It's free for any of us to do that, and it does make a huge impact on somebody else's day. That might be the only compliment that person got all week long. Yeah. And so if you can, and it's free to do that. So I think that's really, really good advice. Absolutely.
Once we started applying this to our lives, it was very fun. And then we just met the most amazing people. Because then sometimes conversations get started. Sometimes it's say it and walk away. But yeah.
So combine that with the 5-second rule, and that could be life-changing.
Yeah.
You never know who you're going to meet or have a great conversation with.
It's so true.
And timing is a virtue. And thanks for spending some time with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming down.
This was so fun. Thank you for having me. You made my day when you reached out. So I was like, oh, this will be great.
Yeah, you did very good, and it was great to have you in the studio. And we love to have repeat guests because we didn't really dive into all the weather. I got more weather to talk with you. We ran out of time, unfortunately, but we got more weather to talk about.
We've got a lot more weather, and if we ever get something like big that's happening, we get a big snowstorm, I'll come in and I'll chat about it.
We're going to chat. Yeah. Even if we have to have you remote in, like via Zoom, we're patching you through to the
Honestly,
podcast.
if it's a big snowstorm day, that might be how it goes. It's so funny because people will always text me, and I'm like, you do realize this is like my busiest time ever.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
That's cool. Well, it's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. And
it was great meeting you guys.
Yeah, it's good to have you in our wheelhouse now.
Class.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Kylie keeps crushing it. She's going to keep crushing it. Kevin's killing the game over here. I know everybody out there, you're also capable of doing this as well. Let's challenge ourselves this week. Let's do something that's tangible. Let's tell somebody a little free compliment. Why not? It's super easy. It's free for us to do. Be good to yourselves.
You deserve it. And happy holidays to everybody. We're going to include all of Kylie's stuff down in the show notes down below. You know where to find her. We're back with you next week, Mike Patchen, to close out 2021. What a great year it's been. So fortunate for everyone that tunes in and supports this podcast. It's been a hell of a journey. And we're just getting going, guys. So enjoy your holiday. Much love to you and your families. Thank you all. We love you. Be good to yourselves. Kylie, thanks again.
Thank you.